All right. Any questions about those bones? Um, so where two bones come together and they need to move, that's called a joint. Like you may hear of your joints, like your elbow. This is a joint. It's like the sets of bones, your forearm, and they move there. And so there's different types of joints, and I'm sure you probably know this, that some of your joints move a certain way and others move differently. Now, there are some joints where we have bones that are there, but they're sealed together basically. They're immovable, like in our cranium, right? There's several bones, but they're all connected to each other. For the joints that are movable, some joints are called hinge joints. That's like our elbow. Like a hinge on a door just allows the door to swing only in one direction, right? It doesn't move up and down or tilt. It just goes back and forth and back and forth. That's like our elbow, right? You can't move your arm. Like you can't, this arm doesn't move down, it just moves up and down, up and down. Same thing, your knee. Your shin can move forward and backward, but that's basically it, as long as it's working properly. That's called a hinge joint. Here's what it looks like in an x-ray. You could see sort of the bones moving. And the way the hinge joint is formed, there's like a little round area that fits in with another bone, and they sort of allow for just very limited movement. The type of joint that has more movement is called a ball and socket joint. That's like your shoulder, right? Your shoulder, you can move up your arm up, down, left, right. You could rotate. That's because your shoulder joint is called a ball and socket. What it is like your humerus at the top has like a almost like a ball, and it fits into like a cup up here in your collarbone, and it allows a wider range of motion. Here, I'll show you the ball and socket joint in this little video. So you can see the ball of the humerus, and it's sort of sitting in that cup, and it's held together with all this connective tissue, and that can move in a wide variety. And then there's a couple other. There's pivot joints in our neck and gliding joints where bones slide on top of each other. Like our neck allows us to do all sorts of movement. This pivot joint that's at the top of our neck, it's a pretty complex joint. Cartilage is what our ears are made out of. Like this tissue that makes up your ears, it's kind of like, it's hard but flexible. That's called cartilage. Our nose is made out of cartilage. But also at the ends of our bones, there's cartilage. And this cartilage is important because it's flexible. It allows for bones to move across each other. And it's found in different places. When a baby's born, most of their skeleton's actually made of cartilage, this kind of material. But as they grow, it starts to kind of solidify into bone tissue. We also have cartilage, like, for example, I tore my meniscus. A meniscus is a little disc of cartilage in your knee that kind of, when you run or walk, it like cushions. And so I was having some knee pain when I would run. And so when I went to the doctor, they did an MRI and they looked, and I had playing soccer, I'd torn my meniscus. And so it was kind of, there's like a little flap kind of off, and they had to go in with a tool and clean it up and remove it. So they had to take away about 90% of this meniscus in my knee. And the pain went away. But what happens is now, maybe as I get older, I might start to develop like arthritis in my knee because there's less cushioning there. So if I keep running or doing things, maybe it's going to start to be painful in the future, but we'll see, hopefully not. So that's sort of about our skeletal system. And then our muscles are also an important part of our body. We have different types of muscle. Some type of muscle is called smooth muscle. It's like in our intestines, our blood vessels, and so forth. And smooth muscle is what we call involuntary. That means we don't control it with our brain. Like when you eat something, you don't have to with your brain like tell the food to move along your digestive and like contract your intestines and think about it. It just happens automatically. The food gets moved along the digestive system. We have also a special type of muscle in our heart called cardiac muscle. It never gets tired, right? Your heart is constantly contracting once every second or so, and it never really gets tired. It's a special type of muscle. It's found only in our heart. And then the muscles we have control over are called our skeletal muscles. And our skeletal muscles are controlled by our brain and our nervous system. We tell our skeletal muscles when to move, when to contract, when to stop. So your brain coordinates all of that. As we talked about in the in our making connections lab, our muscles can get tired. They can get fatigued, right, as we use them more. And as we use them more, waste products build up, carbon dioxide, lactic acid. And until that's cleared away by our circulatory system, then muscle fatigue can set them where muscles are sore and they hurt. And it's just, you can't use them as well. Here's what the muscle types look at as under a microscope. Skeletal muscle kind of has sort of stripes in it almost. Called cardiac muscle is this one, and then smooth muscle is this. And like I said, they have different purposes, different functions. Also connecting the different parts of our body are tendons and ligaments. Tendons are really, really tough tissue. They attach our muscles to our bones. For example, the tendon you're probably familiar, Achilles tendon, is the one in the back of your heel, above your heel. It feels like it's a bone back here, just above like your shoes. It's not a bone, that's a tendon. It connects your calf muscle to your heel so that you could actually move your foot forward and back. If you, in the back of your knee, you could feel you have like these they feel like thick ropes almost. Those are tendons. They attach our muscle to our bone. And ligaments, they attach our bones to our bones. They form our joints. They're tough tissue. They're sort of they're elastic. They kind of have some stretch to them. These are, you probably read about ligaments sometimes when you think about sports injuries. Like if you ever had somebody had an ACL injury, that's a ligament that's in your knee. And in sports, sometimes you can injure your ACL.
My cousin's girlfriend had to get surgery.
Yeah. Yeah, and so sometimes if you have an ACL tear, you have to go for surgery. What they actually do is they take it depends. They take a ligament from somewhere else in your body and kind of put it in your knee to help reconstruct your ACL. There can be different problems with our skeletal or muscular system. Here's one we talked about earlier: osteoporosis. This is when a person their bones are not as dense as they should be. So this is what normal bone looks like, pretty thick, and this is what someone with osteoporosis looks like. There's a lot less bone tissue. So you can imagine it's a lot easier to break a bone if your bone looks like this versus looking like this. This is often a problem, especially in women. Women are more likely to get osteoporosis as they get older, as their body, as they age, things change and their bones lose density. And one of the things that they recommend is weight-bearing exercises can help maintain that bone density. Working out helps improve your bone density. Your bones become more dense. Arthritis is when the joints become inflamed and irritated. It leads to pain, difficulty in using your joints. Sometimes the areas around the joints gets inflamed. That's called bursitis or tendonitis. when our tendons get inflamed. All of these things, they can be caused by using something too much. That's called an overuse injury, or maybe you're doing something too much or too often, or you started doing it too frequently, and it becomes irritated and starts swelling up. That's how sometimes some of these things like bursitis or tendonitis start. Okay, that's the end of our skeletal